So right now, I'm very excited to talk with Kathy Stevens from the Catskill Animal Sanctuary, and I have to tell you a little bit why. In 2013, when I was starting to get hip about what was happening in modern animal farming, I was feeling a lot of guilt and a lot of sadness around all the animals that had been on my dinner plate. And it was coming up on Thanksgiving, and I thought, I don't know if I can do this again. I was reading all the reports about turkeys, and so I went to Google, and I found Catskill Animal Sanctuary and found out that I could stop eating birds and I could actually sponsor some live ones. And so I promptly started sponsoring Declan and Jailbird. Declan, Declan was a turkey.
We still have Declan.
Declan's still around. Okay, so he's, I don't know how old now, but Declan's story, as I understand it, was he was rescued from an animal hoarder. And Jailbird's story was Jailbird, I believe Jailbird has passed on now, but was rescued when an illegal drug operation was raided and they found all these chickens that were in an abandoned house with water, heat, and electricity. So I get to hear from Kathy if these stories that I've heard about Declan and Jailbird are correct.
They are correct. The Jailbird came with a group of, I want to say 30-ish chickens from Kansas City. A drug raid all the way in Kansas City. A volunteer flew out and rented a truck and drove them home. And he was just a sweetheart of a bird. Deeply affectionate, fell asleep in our arms. Just
Aww.
He made a lot of vegans, that boy did.
Well, so Kathy is talking to us today from the Catskill Animal Sanctuary. It's a 150-acre refuge in New York's Hudson Valley for 11 species of farmed animals rescued from cruelty, neglect, abandonment, and all sorts of nasty stuff. In addition to rescue activities, the sanctuary works to ignite social change to farmed animal exploitation and champions compassionate cuisine. Kathy's the founder. She's the executive director. She's also the author of 2 awesome books, actually maybe 3 now.
Well, 2.5. The
2.5 books.
The second one was updated and we took out 10 chapters and replaced them with new chapters. So I don't know how you call that.
All right, we're going to call it 2.5 books. And she's also the host of an amazing weekly podcast called All Beings Considered. So welcome, Kathy, to talking with us.
Thank you, Sarah. Happy to be with all of you.
So what I first wanted to ask Kathy today a little bit about is we're talking about animal loss. And, you know, some of the animals that end up over in Kathy's 150 acres over there are narrowly escape, being on our dinner plate or somewhere else, or dying in the process and not ending up there. And so I wanted to know a little bit about what inspired you to get involved rescuing animals.
I think in retrospect, it was a way to combine my 2 passions, my love of teaching and learning, having been a high school teacher and having been invited to become the principal of a new high school, which I turned down only because it was a media and technology high school. Wrong theme for this one, let me tell you. If it had been a social justice school, I would probably still be there. So it was a way to marry that with my passion for and love of animals and my understanding that they are so much more than most people ever have the opportunity to understand. So that's how I got involved. The desire to have an impact and to use the 2 things I cared the most about in service.
And so what is life like for a rescued someone who ends up with you?
Well, if we've learned anything in 2 decades of doing this work, it's that we're all the same in the ways that matter. And that is sort of one of our mantras. We know this truth that the differences between people based on race, religion, gender, skin color, ethnicity, etc., pale in comparison to our similarities. And I think lots of us probably even know that about our dogs and cats because we have the opportunity to live with them. So we know, for example, that our companion animals are highly emotional animals. And I challenge everybody to name a single emotion that an animal possesses that we possess that animals do not. Nobody can ever do that. Even, people say, well, animals aren't greedy. Well, you watch two pigs.
or my cat eat.
You're okay. Yeah. So, we know these truths about our companion animals because we know them like we know our children. We do not have the opportunity to know that about farmed animals. So the obvious thing is that they are remarkably individual. So in a group of chickens, you've got 10 chickens are as individual as 10 people. Period, the end. There are universal truths that make us human, that apply to humans. There are universal truths that apply to chickens. They like to take dust baths because it keeps parasites away. They love stretching out in the sun. They are amazing parents. But beyond that, they are highly individual. You've got the precocious one, the moody one, the outgoing one, the shy one, the talker, the aggressive one, the insanely intelligent one, the sharpest knife in the drawer. So what it's like is that you are among, to get to answer your question in a very long-winded way, we get to be among 300 or so remarkably individual beings, and to try to care for them as individual beings. So a one-size-fits-all approach just doesn't work. So what it's like is, I was going to say controlled chaos, but it's not chaotic because the days are very...
It's like living on a commune.
Yeah, it's not like that because the days are very organized. They have to be, because anything out of the ordinary sets that whole day askew. But it is physically exhausting. It is emotionally challenging, but so rewarding. It is life affirming. It is terrifying because unless humanity gets that we've got to go vegan, there's not going to be a planet here for any of us. So, it's all of those things. And you've got among your class, you've got clergy who are probably the heads of churches. It's, these we feel no less responsibility for our animals, I would imagine, than clergy do for their, whatever you call their
congregations. Although, it's interesting while you were saying that, Kathy, I was thinking like in the Christian tradition, they always call it like the flock. And like, I remember when I was a kid, my dad was a minister, and it was like, Dr. Murdoch and his flock. And I'm thinking, oh, isn't that interesting? We were already using some sort of chicken metaphor there, but
Sure.
I'll have to think about that one a little bit.
Sure.
So what is it like? I'm really curious about this, especially having sponsored some folks over there. What is it like when an animal dies at the sanctuary?
An animal dies?
Yeah.
It's hard to generalize because every death is different. Every relationship is different. We don't, as we know from having losses among our human families, you react more strongly or more or less strongly depending on the intensity of your relationship with that person. Well, this is the case with animals. It's one thing to lose the species doesn't matter. It's one thing to lose somebody with whom you've had a 3-month-long relationship than it is to lose someone who's been there for 19 years, right?
Yeah.
And to lose someone you've nurtured through infancy into young animalhood, into their elder years, and to try with them to give them the very best geriatric care possible, but to always ask the question, do they want to keep trying? What is their spirit telling you? Do you keep trying this treatment, that procedure, this herb, this medical, or is it time? Is the animal saying, I'm done? So loss varies tremendously based on our individual relationship. But one thing that all of us humans have to get good at, or we will not survive, or sanctuaries are not the places where we should spend our time if we want to contribute to animals. You have to get good at saying goodbye. You have to feel the loss deeply and fully and let the grief move through you, and then get right back to center, because you still got all those beings who need you, all the ones who are waiting to come in for that care, including for the love piece of it. So that's a little bit about what it's like for me. And if you ask 10 of us, we'd all describe it a little differently.
Yeah, but I think it's also helpful to hear one voice of someone who's doing this, because we often hear lives talked about in numbers. We're seeing that in the pandemic right now with the thing on the side of the screen that says this many, it says 200,000 people. And then I'll turn to my husband and say, yeah, but 1 million animals died on the road in the US today as roadkill, right? Like, we're always speaking in statistics.
Yes, we are.
Right. And so this idea of hearing from you and hearing from your voice and seeing in your face what that's like to deal with that many animals and to have loss and to be taking care of geriatric care. I think it's helpful to sink into this, out of statistics and into the heart, I guess. Right.
Yeah. Easy not to do. Right, people, we're bombarded by so much information that you have to make room to feel some of the stuff.
Yeah. I know that on your website you mentioned that 94% of your non-vegan visitors, after visiting, say they intend to reduce or eliminate animal products after a visit. Did I read that right?
You got that right.
So everyone who's listening to this, go visit Kathy. Wait, you're not open yet, are you? When the pandemic's over.
We're still figuring out whether we can open up a little bit for the very end of the year.
Yeah, but the virtual sanctuary is open too, and the goat games just happened, which was fabulous. So there's a lot of online offerings. But can you talk a little bit about how having even a temporary one-on-one relationship through a tour or a visit or something like that can affect people?
People know we're not a petting zoo, so they come down ready to learn, and they come down for the most part with open hearts. So that's just a given. Those two things are just givens. But what they do not expect is for a pig to run to us when we call her name, or a chicken to fall asleep in our arms, or for a turkey to crawl into their laps and just demand love, or for a cow to lick their faces over and over and over and over. These truths are hidden from us. We do not have the opportunity to engage with animals most of us consider food in the way that we do with our animals at home. So while it's not surprising, it's so disarming to people. We have, and I would dare say that all good sanctuaries have this, like dozens of stories, hundreds of stories of people being flattened by the experience they have with a food animal. And the shortest story I have is of a man who took a tour, and I was just pulling into the parking lot and getting out of the car when he was finishing his tour, and he saw me and we locked eyes, and he ran to me with tears streaming down his face, and he said, "I get it now. Tell me what to do." That is the power of sanctuaries. We can't, they force us to see who they are.
And I think what's beautiful about what you do at Catskill Animal Sanctuary is you also have all these programs. So when I first, when Declan and Jailbird became part of the Bowen family, we claimed them. We
Yeah.
claimed them, but it was just around Thanksgiving, and I was going through the whole thing of how, you know, my family, my extended family, saying, how can we possibly come over and not have a turkey? You know, and I'm like, the Pilgrims probably didn't have a turkey, you know, and we've got some Thanksgiving problems anyway, you know. Let's not
Yeah,
hold
just a few.
that as our highest tradition.
Yeah.
But at that time, I got an email from your team that said, hey, if you want to learn how to cook a Thanksgiving dinner that tastes really great, doesn't have any animal products in it, come on over and you can come to cooking class. I was like, I can? And so I came over with it as part of the, I think it was called the Compassionate Cuisine Program at that time,
Yeah,
or
it
something
still is.
like that. And came over and learned how to make all this awesome food with a bunch of other people, knowing that there were turkeys like out in the yard while we were cooking, and none were, you know, there was just something so beautiful knowing that I didn't have to, I didn't need them. I didn't need them for my holiday. I didn't need them for my health. I didn't need them for any of this. They could be where they were, loving out in the, you know, in the fields, and I could learn to cook. And the Compassionate Cuisine cookbook is out there and available for folks to take a look at. And I think you do some cooking videos as well right now in the
We
pandemic.
do,
Is
you
that
know,
right?
we had to use the word that has become such a cliche this year. We've had to pivot. You know, all of our programming had to go online virtually overnight. So we are doing virtual cooking classes through the remainder of the year, and probably will continue, if not grow that model in 2021 and forward. But we're also taking the last quarter of the year to kind of look at where the world is now and see how to jigger all our programming, what new programs we want to add, where we want to tweak in order to have the greatest impact in this new environment.
Yeah, you know, that leads me to the last question I had on my list, which is I know that you took part in Black Veg Fest's 7 points of allyship for the white vegan community in defense of Black lives that I noticed on your website. And this has been, I attended Black Veg Fest online this year as well. And I think it's an interesting topic because I get a lot of comments from folks sometimes that say, well, you know, you're white and you're privileged and you've got enough money to buy this, that, and the other. And, you know, so there's a lot of education around that area. And I learned some interesting things at VegFest. I learned that a 2016 study revealed that among Americans, Black vegans more than doubled the amount of white vegans, 3% versus 8%. And I also learned that a poll from this year that asked people, you know, are you reducing the amount of animal meat that you're eating? And 19% of white Americans said, I'm eating less, 31% among people of color. So the idea that veganism is a white movement is not exactly true, but there are some challenges when we're in this environment of talking about what lives matter and all of that. And I'm wondering how you're addressing this at the animal sanctuary. You know, is that something that comes up often when people are asking this intersection of race and animal welfare? I mean, we know that the folks who are working in the factory farms are disproportionately people who are BIPOC and all of this. So I'm just wondering if you have any ideas on that topic.
Where we are with this is learning what our job is if we want to truly reflect what America looks like. So I have a meeting on, right now we're just talking with consultants at various groups to figure out how they might help and what our work is moving forward when we want to, you know, when we want to honor and support everybody, and when the reality of the Black experience in this country is just so horrifying and so inexcusable. and you know, the attachment of white people to this idea of America being the greatest country in the world. You know, we've had a great PR machine behind us, that's for damn sure. But I'd be hard pressed to find a lot of people of color, or even you know, white people in Appalachia, in impoverished communities, who feel the same opportunity that people like me have been able to take for granted my whole damn life. I don't know if I answered your question, but
No, I think you did answer the question, because I think it's a tension that comes up for me sometimes about where we put focus. And for those of us who are tackling speciesism, you know, how are we making sure that we're not ignoring other pieces, or that we're being inclusive, or, you know, how do we have this kind of hole in the picture and still be doing the piece of the work that we're really good at, you know, with and the
yeah,
piece
it's
that
not,
we need to bring awareness.
it's not an easy question.
It's not. I like asking the question right now, because I think to not ask it leaves a piece of what we're all working on out. And I had an interesting interview with someone who was a Brazilian immigrant, and you know, and she was talking about the intersection between, you know, watching her home country be deforested, you know, for grazing, right, and these kind of issues. So I think it all interrelates in a way. So I appreciate you sharing the beginning of or the where you are in that journey, I guess, where you are in that journey right now. So that was the last question I had, but I have one kind of super secret funny question I like to ask at the end of the interview, which is, if there was any species that's extinct that you could bring back, what would it be?
What? Really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm just going to say the obvious one. It's the dinosaur, because who wouldn't want to see a bird, an animal the size of a building?
You're the first one who said dinosaur. Everyone always goes dodo.
Really?
Yeah.
A dinosaur, because of the range of size and species, and the, you know, the aggressors and the gentle, docile ones, and the dinosaurs. I loved studying the dinosaurs when I was a kid.
You're going to need more than 150 acres if the dinosaurs come back, Kathy. And a bigger food budget, I think.
Way bigger.
Way bigger. Well, thank you so much for taking this time to talk with me. The website for Catskill Animal Sanctuary has all sorts of information, and they're always running really cool programs and great stuff to watch. So I will make sure that URL is up at the end of the video.
Beautiful.
Thanks so much for your time.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Sarah.